This is the Panasonic S1R. It might be the most well thought out, fun to use mirrorless camera I've ever had in my hands. But it's not without some drawbacks, a few that are pretty serious. Welcome to a new series of reviews I'm calling the 5x5, where I share 5 pros and 5 cons about the cameras I'm reviewing. And I asked, you answered on Instagram, you want to hear the good news first, so let's pour on the praise before reality catches up. You see, as a Panasonic GH4 and GH5 owner, I really love these little video-centric cameras. They're well designed and excellent values for video, capable of capturing beautiful photos too, even though that's not really their strength. So I was really excited when Panasonic announced they were going to make a full-frame version. And well, now I've been testing out the S1R for the past week across the Pacific Northwest. Let's dive into what they got right in this camera. This video is brought to you by SQUARESPACE. Whether you need a domain, website, gallery, or beautiful online presence, SQUARESPACE can provide it. You can learn more and save 10% off your purchase at squarespace.com/photorectv. First up is image quality. I mean, the one aspect any great camera needs to nail is image quality, and the S1R doesn't disappoint. We've got a 47 megapixel sensor in here that I found to provide great detail, excellent low light performance too, and it's got this high resolution mode that can capture massive 187 megapixel photos. Now, for those resolution pictures, you do need to keep the camera steady on a tripod and photographing a mostly static scene, but it does all of the stitching and processing in the camera and then provides you a single raw file. This makes it much more useful, in my opinion, than, say, Sony a7R III's pixel shift feature that requires you to post-process in Sony's proprietary software. For you video shooters, the S1R records 4K at 60 frames per second. I mean, you can slow down that high-resolution, high-speed video to half speed for some smoother slow-mo action. It's great for stretching out those epic moments or crafting a more dreamlike feel to the video. And that, combined with the fact that you've got dual image stabilization in here, and gives you silky smooth handheld footage. No other full-frame mirrorless on the market can do 4K at 60, let alone with dual IS. Now, it's important to note you are limited to just 15 minutes of 4K at 60. If you need longer recording times, consider the cheaper 24 megapixel version called the S1. It's got a few more video-centric features. Another feature that I love is the electronic viewfinder. It's got a whopping 5.7 million dots in here, which is significantly higher than any other EVF on the market. Again, comparing it to the Sony a7R III, you've got 3.7 million dots there. This increase is a noteworthy upgrade, and looking through the S1R viewfinder, it is a sweet and detailed view of the world. Another thing that's great about this camera is how fast and responsive it is. One thing that has bogged down many of the higher megapixel cameras is kind of that interruption of functions when shooting a big burst of images, waiting for them to write. I mean, some cameras lock you out of playback, and some either lock you out of controls until the memory card is done writing, or at least until it's started to catch up. The S1R is equipped with an XQD and SD card dual memory slot system. I'm finding it tearing through bursts of photos up to 9 frames per second. No interruption in camera functionality. I can begin reviewing photos right away. This level of responsiveness is refreshing. And as I teased at the beginning, the S1R might be one of the most thoughtfully designed and feature-packed cameras. And in a useful way, not just we threw a bunch of bells and whistles in here to look good. No, these are great. Like, for instance, when shooting at night, you have backlit buttons and a whole night photography mode where all the screens are dimmed and tinted red to avoid ruining your night vision. That, paired with the fact that you have a max of a 60-second shutter speed, this is a really nice camera for astrophotography. You've got additional features like the integrated time-lapse mode that can produce a series of stills or video or both. We've got a nice and responsive and intuitive touchscreen that flips out for vertical-oriented shots, and we can charge this camera over USB, either through an external battery charger or plugged in, and the external battery charger that they provide supports USB charging as well. It's just really nice. And then there's the little touches, like when you're on self-timer mode and you press Q to activate the quick menu, you're immediately taken to the setting to adjust the length of the self-timer. Pressing the ISO button each time raises it, or you can hold it down and turn the dial as is more traditional. Again, these little touches all add up to one of the most fun and full-featured cameras I have ever used. Squarespace really is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence. Not only is it incredibly easy to build your website and have beautiful custom backgrounds, either video or photos, but now they've added this whole marketing tool, which is incredibly powerful. Email campaigns right from your website with that same easy drag and drop interface that just makes it all so easy. Check them out at squarespace.com/photorectv and you will save 10% off your first purchase. Thanks Squarespace so much for their support. The S1R, it's an awesome step for Panasonic into the full frame scene, and as I said, it's a joy to shoot with. But it isn't without some drawbacks. Right off the bat, from unboxing this camera, I was blown away by the size. It's absolutely massive and heavy. I mean, one of the reasons I bought into mirrorless was to go a little smaller, lighter, and have a more travel-friendly system. But this camera and 24-105 lens combo, it weighs more than a 5D Mark IV with a 24-105 lens. It weighs more than a DSLR. Panasonic has been a little slower with autofocus performance for stills and video and compared to most competitors, and that remains true with the S1R. You do have multiple options, including human and animal autofocusing, tracking features, but the reality is this camera is just not fast enough to keep up with action or birds in flight or, faster moving wildlife. Not to mention, we don't really have the lenses for wildlife. Which brings me to my next point, lenses. Right now, you have the 24-105 f4, the 70-200 f4, and a 50mm f1.4, and that's it. Sigma's making lenses for this mount. There will be 11 out by the end of 2019, and there are adapters as well for Canon glass, which is nice because without that, you'd have no lens options longer than 300mm. On the bright side, it is the same as the established Leica L-mount system, so you have those lenses available to you, but you're going to be ponying up $5,000 for some Leica glass, which you might want to save that cash to buy more batteries. You see, you might think with a battery this size that Panasonic would have great battery life, but I found it to be less than a full day of shooting, and SIPA rating puts it at only 360 shots. Now, there are several options in the menu for saving battery life, and that USB charging I mentioned can help, but just know on the default settings, you likely won't get through a full day of shooting. And finally, let's talk price. At $3,700 for body only, this camera is almost $1,000 more than the Sony a7R III currently sells for. And when you look at the cost of those current Leica L-mount lenses, well, this is not a cheap system to buy into. So the S1R, is it the new mirrorless darling or a forgettable flop? It's certainly not a flop. I mean, the usability and image quality give the competitors a serious run for their money. But at this price, with that battery life, the slower autofocus, and lack of lenses does kind of limit the versatility. At the end of the day, this is a solid piece of equipment from Panasonic and will be able to capture some epic pictures and video. I am interested to see how the lens selection develops and what Panasonic will do to improve the autofocus capabilities. If you found this video useful, hit that thumbs up button and consider subscribing and clicking that little bell to be notified of future 5x5 videos, photography workshops, travel videos, and so much more. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.